Much too complex. Too complex. Much too complex. Too complex. Too complex.
Happy Wednesday afternoon, or evening, I guess I should say. It's evening now. Just as promised, I want to upload a video so that you guys can see our Mugshot Monday sentence, and so that you can have an opportunity to try to fix the sentence yourself. I'm going to challenge you that once you get to see the sentence, that you would pause. I challenge you to pause the video and write the sentence down and try to correct the errors yourself. So I'm hoping that you'll take me up on my challenge. Let's go ahead and get started. Let me turn my camera around here and just get all adjusted there. There we go. I think you can see the sentence. All right. So I hope that you'll go ahead and pause the video right here and write the sentence down and take a few moments and try to find all the errors. I'm going to guess that you're not going to get all of them unless you're an English teacher or unless you do a whole lot of writing for a living. Because what I believe happens with the kids and us is that our brain makes some connections for us. We see this sentence the way that it is, but sometimes we miss some obvious things because our brain automatically makes those connections for us. And so I'm asking you to take your time the same way that I would ask the students to take your time and read it over. I'll read it out loud. And while I'm doing that, I want you to listen for the natural pauses and stops in my voice, because that's going to tell you where commas and periods should go. So that's just a little jump start. And that's not the only thing that's wrong with this. There are quite a few things wrong with this, but you definitely know that there are some commas and periods that are in place or out of place. This year, writing will be a major focus. It's important to understand grammar rules. Without them, your writing is difficult to understand. Once a week, we'll begin class with one of these sets of MUG sentences. MUG, by the way, is an abbreviation of mechanics, usage, and grammar. All right, let's start with that first sentence. This year, writing will be a major focus. I hope that you heard the natural pause in my voice, because that sentence was a run-on sentence. And so we had to find our natural stopping place, and it was behind focus. So this year, writing will be a major focus is a sentence all by itself. The other thing we needed to do was properly place the comma behind year. Why? Because this year is an introductory phrase or clause, and it's not necessary to the sentence. I could take it out and read the sentence. Writing will be a major focus. That is still a perfectly good sentence. So this is additional information that must be set off by a comma, right? So here the sentence is again. So we fixed the run-on. We turned that into a period. So that would mean that we would have to capitalize this I. But there's something else wrong here. Let's go on to the next slide. All right, so we capitalized our I because it's the start of a new sentence, but we also fix the it's. The it's in the uncorrected sentence was a pronoun, a possessive pronoun, and we don't need a possessive pronoun here. What we need is a contraction. We need a contraction because this should read, it is important to understand grammar rules, or it can read, it is important to understand grammar rules. So the apostrophe was in the wrong place, making it a possessive pronoun before. And now it has been properly changed to a contraction. All right. It's important to understand grammar rules. Without them, your writing is difficult. The next thing we did was corrected a comma splice. What do I mean by comma splice? It is important to understand grammar rules. That's a sentence all on its own. Without them, your writing is difficult to understand. Another complete sentence. So we could have put a period here and capitalized this sentence like we did the first run-on sentence. But here we chose to use the semicolon because these are two independent clauses, but these two independent clauses are related. They are related. And so when they're related, it looks nicer to use the semicolon. All right, so those are the corrections we made. We changed it to a contraction. We corrected the comma splice by adding a semicolon to combine these two complete thoughts. The other thing we did was we added a comma. The same way the first sentence had that introductory clause, this independent this sentence has an introductory clause as well. Without them, comma, your writing is difficult to understand. If I took out without them, your writing is difficult to understand, is a sentence all by itself. So this introductory clause must be offset by a comma. The other thing we did is we replaced the contraction YOU apostrophe RE. We replaced the contraction with the correct spelling of YOUR, your. Now here we needed a possessive pronoun instead of a contraction. If we had left that contraction in place, it would read, you are writing is difficult to understand. And we all know we don't speak that way, right? So we've completely fixed the first paragraph. Now let's look down here at the second one. Once a week, well begin class with one of those sets of mug sentences. This was one of the things I was talking about where your brain probably automatically made the correction for you. You looked at that and probably thought you knew that that should have been WE apostrophe LL. Let's look at it while it's standing alone. Good, as it stays alone. So your brain probably automatically told you that, and you may not have even seen that the word was well instead of the contraction will. The other thing we did here is that we added another comma because this too, once a week, is an introductory phrase that's not necessary. I could take once a week out. Will begin class with one of these sets of mug sentences is a perfectly good sentence. So this is additional information that must be offset by a comma. We fixed the run-on sentence because this was a complete thought ending at sentences, and we needed a period right there. And of course, again, our word usage. We changed well to will, the contraction will, right? Here's that again. So this is the sentence that we corrected. We changed well to will. We put a comma behind week, and we took this comma out and made it a period. So that leaves this last sentence. Let's take a look at it. There we go. So here we added a comma right here and right there. Why did we do that? Well, this is not an introductory clause, but this is additional information. It's a prepositional phrase, by the way. That's additional information. Same rules apply, though. If we took by the way out, the sentence would still make good sense. MUG is an abbreviation of mechanics, usage, and grammar. So we could take that little tidbit out and the sentence would still make sense. So again, it must be offset by commas. Now let me just make this comment right here. It's absolutely okay for that comma to be beside the period because normally we don't see a comma alongside a period. But because this period is here to indicate that MUG is an abbreviation for something, that comma right there is perfectly fine. Okay, and so the other thing we did here, we added the commas, and we also added an end mark inside the abbreviation. The quotation marks. And so that's very important. Sometimes we want to take our punctuation mark and put it on the outside of quotation marks, and that should never be the case. Now, we use these quotation marks here not because there is a direct quote, because that's one of the times that we use quotation marks. Not because we were quoting something, because that's the other time we use quotation marks. But we use it here to put emphasis on the fact that this is the definition of MUG, right? Okay, so We also added end marks, but we also added one more thing. We added a comma right here behind usage. If we go back really quickly, we'll see that there was no comma behind usage. So we added the comma here because this is a list. We're listing something. And whenever you have a series of words, you have to add commas to offset those, to make them stand out as separate, right? So mechanics, comma, usage, comma, and grammar. The final thing, and I did not write it up there, but the final thing we did, and I hope you noticed it along the way, is that grammar was spelled incorrectly. It's spelled incorrectly in both paragraphs. So we added an A to finish up our corrections. Now, that took us almost or more than 10 minutes. So I want you to think about this, have a conversation with your student about this, and I also want you to tune in next week for next week's mugshot. Have a great night. Here, let's take a look at the sentence with all the corrections in place. This year, writing will be a major focus. It's important to understand grammar rules. Without them, your writing is difficult to understand. Once a week, we'll begin class with one of these sets of MUG sentences. MUG, by the way, is an abbreviation of mechanics, usage, and grammar. Wow, doesn't that look so much better? And for me, it was much easier on my eyes. It was much easier on my tongue as well, because it allowed me to read it the way it should be read. I often tell students that punctuation tells the story, because without punctuation, we would just run on and on. All right, I'm looking forward to seeing you back here on next week. Bye-bye.